Thomas Reed is a millionaire CEO in Miami, known for building towers that scrape the sky, yet his heart lives in ruins. Haunted by the son he lost contact with after a bitter breakup, Thomas keeps his past buried, until a slum visit changes everything. Among crumbling streets, he spots a boy with blonde hair and piercing blue eyes, his mirror image. The boy holds out a torn photo, whispering, "This was my mom." Thomas freezes. It's her, his ex, and this boy could be his son. Shocked and overwhelmed, Thomas invites the boy to eat, hears about his life in the slums, and feels guilt slam into his chest like a wrecking ball. A DNA test confirms what his heart already knew. The boy is his. Thomas takes him home, but the mansion's marble halls feel cold to a child raised in the dirt. Noah clutches a camera, capturing shadows and corners, too afraid to call it home. Can this father and son rebuild what was stolen by silence and time? And when the media attacks, calling it a stunt, Thomas must stand not as a CEO, but as a dad, fighting for his son and every forgotten child like him. Can love survive the distance of 12 years and a lifetime of regret? Subscribe to see this heartfelt story unfold. Rain puddled in broken asphalt as Thomas Reed stepped out of his black SUV, the Miami heat rising in waves from the slum's crumbling pavement. His polished shoes were already smudged with dirt. He frowned, glancing down a narrow alley lined with tin roofs and sagging wood frames. The real estate deal was supposed to be routine, just another distressed property, another blank slate for luxury condos. But something felt different today. He adjusted the cuff of his white shirt, golden cufflinks glinting in the sun. His assistant trailed behind, clipboard in hand, muttering figures. Thomas didn't hear him. His eyes were locked on a figure up ahead, a boy. The child was thin, barefoot, and sitting near an abandoned fruit stand, cradling a worn-out backpack. He held up a torn photo to passers-by, his voice barely rising above the wind. "Please, have you seen her? Please, I'm hungry." Thomas froze. The boy had golden hair, wild and sun-bleached, and eyes, those piercing, familiar blue eyes, that reached into some part of Thomas he thought had gone numb. He stepped closer. "Hey, what's your name?" The boy flinched, then looked up. "Noah." He stood, wary, clutching the photograph. "You don't know her. No one does." Thomas's gaze dropped to the photo. His breath hitched. It was her, Camille, the woman who had left 10 years ago, the one he'd fought with, shouted at, begged to stay, before she vanished with nothing but a note. Thomas felt the earth shift. "Where did you get this?" he asked, his voice low. Noah shrugged, defensive. "She was my mom. She died 2 years ago. I live here now." His knees weakened. "How old are you, Noah?" 12. Thomas did the math. His heart sank into his chest like a stone. The boy looked just like him. Noah's gaze narrowed. "Why are you staring at me like that?" Thomas crouched slowly. The smell of the alley, old oil, rain, desperation, filling his lungs. "Because I think I might know her, Camille." "Where did she go?" Noah's face darkened. "She got sick, stayed in shelters. Then she was just gone." Silence stretched between them. Behind Thomas, his assistant stood frozen, unsure whether to intervene. Thomas reached into his wallet and pulled out a business card. "Do you have anywhere safe to go tonight?" Noah blinked. "I sleep in a car, when I can find one unlocked." Thomas's throat tightened. "Come with me." Noah hesitated. "Why?" "I want to buy you dinner. Just dinner, no tricks." "People always want something," the boy muttered. Thomas offered a sad smile. "Right now, I just want to sit with you and talk." Noah studied him. Suit, watch, clean hands. Then, slowly, he nodded. At the diner down the street, Noah devoured scrambled eggs and pancakes like he hadn't eaten in days. Thomas barely touched his food. He just watched the boy speak, watched the way he chewed his lip when nervous, just like Camille used to. Between bites, Noah talked about his life, living in shelters, sleeping on bus benches, selling cans for coins. Thomas couldn't breathe. A child, his child, had been begging for food while he signed million-dollar deals in penthouses. Noah wiped his mouth with his sleeve. "Why do you care?" Thomas leaned forward. "Because I think I might be your father." Noah froze, his fork mid-air. "What?" "I need to know for sure, but I loved your mother. We were together, then we weren't. She never told me anything." Noah stared, silent. His fingers gripped the photo again. "We'll do a DNA test," Thomas said gently. "I'll find you a place to stay tonight. A clean bed. No expectations." Noah hesitated, then whispered, "I don't need anything from you." Thomas's voice cracked. "But I need to do this. For her, and for you." Outside the diner, the streetlights flickered on. Thomas watched as Noah stood at the window, staring at the rain. He pulled out the photo one more time and pressed it against the glass. Behind him, Thomas whispered, "That picture might be the only thing that ever brought us together." The rain hadn't let up. Outside the diner's fogged windows, streetlights flickered like old memories. Thomas sat across from Noah, watching the boy hunch over his plate, every bite quick and quiet. He didn't talk much, only nodded when asked simple things. Thomas broke the silence. "How long have you been on your own?" Noah looked up, guarded. "Since I was 10. 2 years," Thomas whispered, leaning back. "Where did you sleep last night?" "In a bus." Noah didn't blink. "Sometimes it's a stairwell. Depends who's yelling." Thomas's jaw tightened. "And school?" Noah shrugged. "They stopped asking. I stopped showing up." The fork clinked against his empty plate. He grabbed the photo from his jacket pocket again, smoothing its crumpled edges on the table. His fingers lingered on her smile. "She always smiled like that when she made pancakes," Noah said quietly. "But she cried too, a lot." Thomas blinked hard, his voice catching. "She was strong." "She was tired," Noah corrected, his eyes sharp now. "She never said your name, just said I was better off not knowing." Thomas swallowed the lump in his throat. "She didn't tell me. Not once." Noah didn't respond. Reaching for his phone, Thomas typed quickly, then looked up. "I'm arranging a hotel room nearby. It'll be safe. You'll get a hot shower, real bed, clean clothes." Noah crossed his arms. "You don't have to do this." "I know," Thomas said, "but I want to. I should have known. I should have been there." The boy shifted in his seat, eyes darting to the door. Thomas leaned in. "I've already called someone. A lawyer. He can help verify things. DNA. Legal steps." "You think I'm lying?" Noah said sharply. "No." Thomas's voice stayed calm. I need proof. For both of us." Noah looked down. "I guess." "I wouldn't believe it either." Thomas stood. "Let's go." They walked in silence. The diner door swung shut behind them with a jingle, and the storm pressed on around them. Later that night, in a small, clean hotel room, Noah stood by the window, watching headlights smear across puddles. He clutched the same photo in one hand. The corners were soft now, like it had been folded and unfolded too many times. A symbol, his last link to the mother he'd lost, and maybe the father he never knew. Thomas waited nearby, pacing softly near the door. His suit jacket was draped over the back of a chair. He'd rolled up his sleeves, looking less like a CEO and more like a man trying to rebuild something broken. "I'm not used to beds," Noah murmured. "They take time," Thomas said gently. "So do people." There was a knock. Thomas opened the door to his lawyer, Daniel Ruiz, a wiry man with the sharp glasses and a quiet, steady voice. He nodded to Noah. "This won't take long. We'll do a simple mouth swab. Then we'll send it out. Results in 48 hours. Noah stood still, clutching the photo tighter. "Will it change anything?" Thomas looked at him. "Only everything." The test was quick, quiet. Noah didn't flinch. When it was done, Daniel packed up his kit and nodded. "I'll be in touch." When he left, silence crept back in. Thomas turned to Noah. "Do you want to talk more about her?" Noah shook his head. "Not yet." "Okay," Thomas said, grabbing a blanket and laying it on the couch. "You take the bed. I'll be here." Noah didn't thank him, didn't move. He finally spoke, his voice a whisper. "Why now?" Thomas stared at him. "Because I finally saw you, and I can't unsee it." The boy turned back to the window. Behind him, Thomas sat in the half-dark, staring at the crumpled photo still in Noah's hand. It wasn't just a picture. It was proof of love lost and something new beginning. Morning light crept through the narrow hotel curtains, casting soft lines across Noah's sleeping face. Thomas sat across the room, still in yesterday's dress shirt, eyes fixed on the photo resting beside the boy's pillow. Same photo, same woman, the love of his younger years, Camille. Thomas had tried to forget. He buried the heartbreak under business deals and rooftop views, convincing himself she moved on without him. But now, everything he thought was buried had come clawing back, wearing a 12-year-old's face. Noah stirred, then sat up slowly. "You're still here?" Thomas nodded. "Didn't sleep much." Noah reached for the photo. "Did the test come back?" "Not yet." Thomas's voice was even. "But I wanted to ask about the photo. Where did you get it?" Noah glanced down. "It's the only one I have. Found it in her bag after she stopped waking up." A pause settled in the room. Thomas leaned forward. "What do you remember about her? The early years?" Noah traced the edge of the picture. "We moved a lot. She worked late, but she always kept this in her wallet. Said it was from a better time." Thomas's breath caught. He remembered that photo. He'd taken it with a disposable camera outside a cheap sandwich shop. She was laughing, her hair in the wind. "She told me," Noah added, "that my dad had golden hair, eyes like ice water, and that he was busy." Thomas winced. "She never told me I had a son." Noah shrugged. "Maybe she thought you didn't want one." "I did," Thomas said quietly. "I just didn't know." Noah looked away. "Doesn't matter now." "It does," Thomas said, voice firmer. "I can't undo the past, but I can tell you the truth." Noah turned back, cautious. "So, are you rich?" Thomas gave a dry laugh. "I own a real estate company. We build towers, hotels, condos." "Then why were you in the slum?" "I was surveying a new site," Thomas said. "Didn't expect to find this." Noah stood and walked to the window. "She hated rich people, said they forget fast. That you forgot her, too." Thomas walked to his side. "I never stopped thinking about her. I just didn't know where she went." There was silence between them. Then Noah spoke, not facing him. "Do you think she would have told you? If she lived longer?" Thomas stared at his own reflection in the glass. "I don't know, but I wish she had." The air felt heavy, like memory pressing in. Just then, Thomas's phone buzzed. Daniel's name lit up the screen. He answered. "Yes?" A pause. Then, "It's a match." Thomas turned slowly toward Noah. "What?" the boy asked. Thomas knelt, his voice thick. "The test. It's back. You're my son, Noah." Noah didn't speak. He just clutched the photo tighter. "I knew it," he whispered. "I hoped, but I didn't want to be wrong." Thomas placed a hand on his shoulder. "You weren't." Noah didn't cry. He just stared out the window, quiet. Then he said something Thomas hadn't expected. "Now what?" Thomas exhaled. "Now, I take care of you. For real." Noah finally looked up. "But I'm not like you. I don't belong in mansions." "We'll figure it out," Thomas said. "I don't want to change you. I just want you safe, fed, free to be who you are." Noah nodded slowly. The boy set the photo on the windowsill. Thomas stared at it. A moment, frozen in time. Now the bridge between them. The symbol of a life lost. And maybe a new one beginning. Thomas drove in silence, hands tight around the steering wheel. The air in the car was thick, heavy with everything unsaid. Beside him, Noah sat quietly, eyes fixed on the city rushing past. Glass towers, palm trees, buses roaring through intersections. Noah clutched the old photo in his lap. His thumb traced the faded corner like a nervous habit. Thomas glanced over. "You okay?" "I guess." Noah didn't look up. "Still doesn't feel real." Thomas nodded. "It doesn't for me either." They pulled into a quiet lot surrounded by rundown buildings and sun-bleached fences. Thomas stepped out, holding the door for Noah. "This is where you said she stayed last, right?" Noah looked up at the building. "Yeah. The shelter's down that alley, but they stopped letting her stay when she got bad." Thomas's chest tightened. "You don't have to go in." "I want to." They walked together, slow steps on cracked concrete. The shelter door creaked open. Inside, the smell of disinfectant and old paper hung in the air. A tired-looking woman at the desk glanced up. "Can I help you?" Thomas cleared his throat. "We're looking for any records about Camille Wright. She stayed here a few years ago." The woman blinked, then slowly nodded. "That name I remember." She disappeared behind a file cabinet. Moments later, she returned with a thin folder. "Last we saw her, she was struggling, real bad. Then one day, she didn't come back." Thomas opened the file. There was nothing more than a sign-in sheet, a name scribbled next to the date. "She never said anything about me?" he asked, barely breathing. The woman shook her head. "She kept to herself. But we did hear she had a son. Social services came once, said someone had reported a child on the street. By the time they got there, she was gone." Noah stepped closer. "She always said we had to hide." The woman softened. "She was scared, honey. Sometimes people run when they think no one's gonna stay." Thomas closed the folder gently. "Thank you." Back outside, the sun was sharp and high. Noah sat on a stoop, quiet. "I hated her sometimes," he said suddenly. "When I was cold. When she didn't eat so I could. I didn't understand why she never asked for help." Thomas crouched beside him. "She wasn't perfect, Noah, but she loved you. That much I can see." Noah turned toward him. "Why didn't you find her?" "I didn't even know where to look," Thomas whispered. "After we broke up, she disappeared. I thought she wanted it that way." Noah's eyes filled, but he blinked fast. "I used to wait outside restaurants," he murmured. "Watch families eat. Sometimes I'd sketch them in a notebook. Moms laughing, dads helping their kids cut steak." Thomas's voice caught. "You drew them?" "Yeah. I lost the book. Rain got it." Thomas reached into his pocket, pulled out a pen from his jacket, and held it out. "Start again. Draw what you feel, what you want." Noah took the pen slowly, eyes wide. "You sure?" Thomas nodded. "It's yours." The moment felt fragile, like glass. Two strangers, blood-tied by pain, learning how to stand in the same world. Back in the car, Noah scribbled on a takeout napkin. Two stick figures, one tall, one smaller, holding hands under a crooked sun. He held it up. "This is us, I guess." Thomas looked at the drawing, then at the boy beside him. "You guessed right." And, for the first time, Noah smiled. Not wide, not full, but real. The next morning, Thomas stood outside the hotel room door, coffee in hand. He hesitated before knocking. Inside, Noah stirred from a dreamless sleep, the first full night in a bed in weeks. Thomas tapped twice. "Can I come in?" "Yeah," Noah mumbled. The door opened. Thomas stepped inside and set the coffee on the desk. "I brought breakfast downstairs. Bacon, eggs, toast. Hope that's okay." Noah nodded, still wrapped in the blankets. "It's more than okay." Thomas smiled. "Good. We've got a busy day." "Busy how?" "I've made some calls. Found you a temporary place to stay, better than this hotel, until we figure out what's next." Noah sat up. "You mean, with you?" Thomas paused. "I want you to be safe, and I want to be part of your life, but I also know this is sudden, so I talked to my lawyer. We can make arrangements, Gradually, on your terms. Noah grabbed the pen Thomas had given him yesterday. And the test said you're really my dad? Thomas nodded slowly. It's official, but I think my heart knew even before the test. Noah didn't answer, but he held the pen tighter. Thomas pulled out his phone and hit a contact. Daniel? Yes, go ahead and send the car to 8th and Pine. We'll meet the caseworker at the condo. He hung up, then looked at Noah. We'll stop by the store first. Get you a few things. Clothes, shoes, anything you want. Noah hesitated. I'm not good at picking stuff. We'll figure it out together. The ride to the store was quiet. Noah sat in the back, sketching in a small notebook Thomas had picked up at the front desk. He wasn't drawing people this time. He was sketching windows. Broken ones. Shuttered ones. Ones with bars. When they pulled up to the department store, Thomas opened the door. Come on. You deserve things that fit. Noah stared at the glass doors. They're gonna look at me weird. Thomas placed a hand on his shoulder. If they do, let them. You're not invisible anymore. Inside, the lights were bright. Too bright. Noah stuck close. Thomas guided him gently toward the boys' section, picking up shirts and holding them up. You like red? Blue? Noah shrugged. Black's fine. Thomas grinned. Spoken like a true city kid. After some nudging, Noah chose a hoodie, jeans, sneakers, and a soft flannel jacket. At checkout, he reached for the pen again, sketching a square window with a bird on the sill. What's that? Thomas asked. A real house has birds, Noah said softly. Windows that open. Thomas didn't respond. He simply looked at the drawing and knew. That would be the symbol. That open window. That little bird. Freedom. Safety. A home. Later, they arrived at the temporary condo Thomas had arranged. It wasn't his mansion, not yet, but it was clean, modern, and peaceful. Thomas handed Noah the key card. This is yours. No one else. You can lock it. You can open it. You decide who comes in. Noah turned the card over in his fingers. Even you? Thomas nodded. Even me. Until you're ready. Noah stepped inside and looked around. Kitchen, couch, TV, and a small bedroom with a bed already made, camera catalogs on the desk. Thomas followed behind. I remembered what you said about photos. I asked a friend to send some magazines. There's even a starter camera kit in the drawer. Noah opened it slowly, blinking down at the lens and strap. I don't know how to use this. I'll teach you, Thomas said gently. Or we'll learn together. Noah looked at him, something flickering behind his eyes. I don't want to mess this up, he whispered. You won't, Thomas said, steady and clear. You're not the one who messed up. For a moment, Noah stood silent. Then he stepped forward, holding out the window drawing from earlier. You can keep this, if you want. Thomas took it, eyes glassy. I'll keep it forever. The late afternoon sun filtered through the condo windows, casting long streaks across the kitchen floor. Thomas stood at the counter, stirring pasta sauce, trying to distract himself with something simple. But his mind kept circling the same question. Why hadn't Camille told him? Behind him, Noah sat at the small table, flipping through a photography magazine. He wasn't reading, just staring at the pictures. Thomas set down the spoon. Noah, he said gently, I've hired someone to look into what happened. About your mom. Noah looked up, eyes guarded. Why? Because I need to know. You deserve to know. Noah hesitated. She didn't talk about the past much, just said Miami was full of people who forget. Thomas swallowed hard. I never forgot her, not for a second. Before Noah could respond, Thomas's phone rang. He stepped into the hallway to answer. It was Marcus Lane, his private investigator. I found a woman who used to live with Camille at the shelter, Marcus said. She says Camille never stopped thinking about you, but she was deep in addiction. Thought she wasn't good enough. Thought you'd already moved on. Thomas's throat tightened. And Noah? She tried to keep him clean, said she loved him fiercely, but near the end, she was scared. When the state came looking, she disappeared again. Thomas leaned against the wall. She never told me. She thought I wouldn't want my own son. She thought you'd judge her, Marcus said, and she judged herself first. Thomas hung up and returned to the kitchen. Noah was still at the table, quiet. I talked to someone who knew her, Thomas said softly. She was scared, but she loved you, Noah. She loved you more than anything. Noah didn't move. I know. I saw it when she looked at me. Even when she was sick. Thomas stepped closer. She was protecting you in the only way she knew how. The boy set the magazine aside. Do you think she forgave herself? Thomas sat down across from him. I think she hoped one day we'd both find a way to forgive her. Noah nodded slowly, then pulled something from his hoodie pocket, a small, folded piece of paper. She wrote this, never mailed it. Thomas unfolded it. The writing was shaky. Thomas, I couldn't tell you. I was a mess, but he's yours. His name is Noah. He deserves better than me. Please forgive me. Please find him if I don't. The words blurred as Thomas's eyes filled. He handed it back, voice thick. Thank you for trusting me with this. Noah looked down. I didn't trust you at first. I still don't know how, but I want to try. Thomas reached across the table. That's all I need. A quiet moment passed between them. Then Noah's voice broke the stillness. Can I keep the room? The one at the condo? Thomas smiled gently. As long as you want, it's yours. Noah gave a small nod. Then I want to hang up one of my photos. Just one. Which one? Noah stood and walked to his backpack, pulling out a Polaroid. It showed a cracked window from the shelter, sunlight barely breaking through, and a bird perched on the frame. He handed it over. This one. It reminds me that even broken places get light. Thomas took the photo carefully, like it was made of glass. That's going on the wall, he said, and maybe on the cover of your first gallery. Noah raised an eyebrow. I don't think I'm that good. Thomas met his eyes. I think you're better than you know. The pasta boiled quietly on the stove behind them, forgotten for now, because something far more important had just begun to simmer. Thomas stood in his office, high above downtown Miami, staring out the floor-to-ceiling window. The city buzzed beneath him, cars weaving, cranes lifting steel beams, people rushing between towers he had built, but none of it meant anything now. In his hand was the letter Camille never sent, her final plea, ink smudged by time, pain in every word. He closed his eyes. Then his assistant knocked. Mr. Reed, the DNA results just arrived. Your lawyer asked me to deliver this personally. Thomas turned. Thank you. The envelope was thin, clinical, but it shook in his grip. He sat at his desk, heart pounding, and tore it open. Positive. 99.9999%. Noah was his son. He dropped the paper, leaned forward, and pressed his palms to his eyes. 12 years. While he signed million-dollar contracts, Noah had been sleeping on benches. While he approved blueprints, Noah dug through trash for food. While he designed high-rise windows, his son stared out broken ones, hoping for a bird. Thomas didn't cry. He couldn't. But inside, something shattered. Later that night, he drove to the condo. Noah sat on the floor, camera parts spread across the rug, reading the manual by lamplight. Thomas walked in quietly. Hey! Noah looked up. Hey! Thomas hesitated, then sat beside him. I got the test results. Noah's fingers froze. So? It's official, Thomas said. You're my son. Noah didn't move. Then he nodded once, slow and quiet. I figured. Thomas studied him. How do you feel? Noah shrugged. Scared, I guess. And weird. Thomas smiled faintly. Same? A silence settled between them. Then Noah whispered, Do I have to move in with you now? Thomas shook his head. Only if you want to. You're not an obligation, Noah. You're a gift. But I want you to feel ready. Noah glanced at the window. You think Mom would be okay with this? I think she'd be proud of you, Thomas said, and I think she'd want us to know each other. Noah held up his camera. Can I show you something? Of course. Noah clicked through photos he'd taken that afternoon. The cracked window from the shelter, a dog drinking from a broken pipe, a pair of sneakers hanging from a wire silhouetted by sunset. Thomas leaned closer. These are incredible. Noah looked at him. You mean it? I do. Then Noah reached into his backpack and pulled out the Polaroid from earlier, the one with the bird at the broken window. I want to put this in a frame, he said. Can we hang it at your place? Thomas's breath caught. We can put it wherever you want. Noah smiled, just a little. Maybe in the kitchen, where people see it every day. Thomas reached for the photo. Then, that's where it'll go. Noah stood. One more thing. He walked to the window, opened it carefully, and set the photo on the sill. Let's leave it there for now, he said. That way she can see it too. Thomas blinked. You mean you're? Noah nodded. She always believed I'd find you. Thomas stepped beside him. And I'll never let you go again. Outside, the wind picked up. The photo fluttered slightly, then settled, half in shadow, half in light. A symbol, a promise, a beginning. The sun was just rising over the Miami skyline as Thomas drove Noah toward the estate gates. The mansion stood at the edge of Biscayne Bay, glass and white stone gleaming in the morning light. But Thomas didn't see beauty. He saw contrast. He glanced at Noah in the passenger seat. The boy clutched his camera bag tightly, his eyes fixed on the road. You okay? Thomas asked. Noah nodded, but his fingers tightened around the strap. Big house. Thomas smiled gently. It's just walls and windows. What matters is who's inside. They pulled into the circular driveway. A staff member opened the door, but Noah didn't move. Thomas circled the car and knelt beside him. No one here will judge you, Noah. You're not a guest. You're my son. Noah finally stepped out. As they entered the grand foyer, he looked up at the high ceilings, the chandelier, the marble floors. Then his eyes dropped. He stepped back. Too clean, he whispered. Too quiet. Thomas understood instantly. Come on, he said, guiding him toward the back of the house. Let me show you something. He opened a door to a smaller room off the kitchen. Warm oak walls, a big couch, messy bookshelves, a faded rug, and windows that overlooked the bay. This used to be my den, Thomas said. Now it's yours. Noah blinked. Mine? Thomas pointed to the desk. On it sat a brand-new camera kit, lenses lined up like silver tools. Next to it, a framed print of Noah's window photo. You said you liked light, Thomas added. This room gets all of it. Noah stepped inside slowly, touched the lens. This costs more than everything I ever owned, he said. Thomas knelt beside him. That doesn't mean it matters more. You do. Noah looked around. Do I have to stay in here? Thomas shook his head. You can go anywhere. This is just a start. Later that evening, as Noah explored the house, Thomas stood alone in the living room, staring at old family portraits he'd once hidden in drawers. He didn't know how to do this, how to raise a child hardened by streets and silence. Would Noah ever feel safe here? Would he ever forgive him for the years lost? That night, after dinner, Thomas heard the click of a shutter. He turned. Noah stood across the hallway, camera to his eye, snapping pictures of the staircase. You like the stairs? Thomas asked. Noah nodded. The shadows are interesting, real. Thomas smiled. There's a rooftop garden too. Sunset's great up there. I'll go up later, Noah said. Alone. Thomas understood. Whenever you're ready. Noah hesitated. Then he held out the camera. You want to try? Thomas raised his eyebrows. Me? You said we'd learn together. Thomas took the camera. Show me how. Noah moved beside him, guiding his hand. Light meter, shutter speed, hold steady. Thomas aimed at the photo wall and clicked. Noah looked over his shoulder. You cut off the top. I'll get better, Thomas laughed. Noah nodded. Yeah, you will. Later, in his room, Noah stared at the framed photo of the cracked window. He reached into his backpack, pulled out an old drawing of the same window, only this one had bars. He placed the new photo beside it. No bars now. He looked out of the real window. No birds tonight. But the room was warm and quiet. For the first time, that didn't scare him. A week later, Thomas stood at the foot of the spiral staircase, watching Noah descend slowly in his school uniform. It wasn't a blazer and tie. Noah had refused that, but a dark gray hoodie over clean jeans and new sneakers. His backpack sagged from the weight of camera equipment more than textbooks. "You look ready," Thomas said. Noah glanced down. "I feel weird." "That's normal," Thomas replied. "First day anywhere feels weird." Noah shifted. "What if they don't get me? What if I'm just the CEO's kid?" Thomas stepped closer, adjusting the camera strap across his shoulder. "Then show them who you are, not where you live." Noah gave a small nod and walked toward the door. The drive to the art academy was quiet. The streets buzzed, palms swaying along the sidewalks, sun bouncing off rooftops. Thomas kept one hand on the wheel, one eye on the boy beside him, his son, still so new to him, yet familiar in every instinct. At the entrance, Thomas parked. The campus looked more like a garden than a school. Murals on brick walls, kids sketching under trees, camera tripods pointed at the fountain. "You'll have your own mentor," Thomas said. "She's one of the best in the city, and you'll get your own space to create." Noah opened the door but didn't get out. "What if I mess it up?" Thomas reached into the glove box and pulled out the framed window photo, the one with the bird. He handed it to Noah. "Then remember this," he said. "Beauty starts in broken places." Noah stared at it. "You carry this with you?" "Every day," Thomas said softly. "It reminds me why I do any of this." Finally, Noah stepped out. As he walked through the school gates, he paused, then turned. "You're staying, right? For orientation?" Thomas smiled. Wouldn't miss it. Inside the school, Noah met his mentor, Claire, a kind-eyed photographer who had spent years working with youth in underserved communities. She shook his hand gently. "Your dad says you've got an eye." Noah shrugged. "I just take what I see." Claire smiled. "That's where all the best stories begin." They walked the halls, paint-splattered floors, canvases leaning against lockers, a photography lab lined with computers and developing trays. Noah's face slowly relaxed. At the studio space assigned to him, a corkboard had been pinned with a welcome note. "Tell your truth. Frame your light." Noah ran his fingers along the edge of the desk. Claire handed him a fresh journal. "First assignment. Find 5 things in this school that no one else sees. Shoot them. Show me what they mean to you." Noah opened the journal. "Okay." Later that afternoon, as Thomas waited in the courtyard, Noah came bounding toward him, flushed and bright-eyed. "I got it," he said, pulling his camera from the bag. "Look, this one's a shadow under the staircase. You can see shapes, like wings. And this, someone carved initials into a brick under the garden bench." Thomas grinned. "Already seeing the invisible, huh?" Noah nodded. "Claire said I have good instincts." "She's right." As they drove home, Noah leaned back in his seat, more relaxed than Thomas had ever seen him. "You were right about the school," he said. "It's not about being rich, it's about seeing." Thomas glanced over. "You've always seen more than most." Noah smiled, then reached into his bag and handed Thomas something, a black and white print he'd developed in class. It was a shot of the window in Thomas's study, sunlight spilling through onto a book left half open on the sill. "I wanted to give you this," he said. "It felt like home." Thomas stared at the photo, then at his son. "It is," he said quietly, "because you're in it now." Rain tapped gently on the glass as Noah stood in the corner of the grand hallway, camera in hand. He wasn't taking pictures, just staring through the lens at the wide space as if waiting for it to shrink. Thomas peeked around the corner. "You okay?" Noah didn't answer right away. "It's just big," he said, "like a museum. Everything's too perfect." Thomas stepped into the hall. Want to rearrange something? Spill paint on the wall? Noah cracked a small smile but didn't laugh. You ever been left before? He asked suddenly. Thomas blinked. Yes, he said softly, and I've done some leaving too. Noah lowered the camera. When I got here, I thought, this can't be real. This isn't for me. It is, Thomas said, even if it takes time to feel like it. Noah looked down at his shoes, new, spotless. These don't feel like mine. Thomas stepped closer. Then we'll get you different ones, or none at all. That night, Thomas found a note on his desk. 4 words, scratched in pencil. Don't make promises. Prove. The next morning, Thomas canceled 3 meetings and walked into Noah's room holding 2 bus tickets and a folded city map. Noah looked up from his camera manual. What's that? A day off, Thomas said. Let's go shoot the city. The 2 of them boarded the city bus, Noah sitting by the window, Thomas beside him, awkward in his usual suit. They visited Noah's old neighborhood. Noah led the way, pointing out the alley he used to sleep in, the corner where the soup van parked on Thursdays, the chain-link fence where he once lost a shoe. Thomas didn't speak. He just walked beside him, his silence filled with listening. Noah crouched by a crumbling brick wall and lifted his camera. I used to think if I took a picture of something broken, it would stop breaking. Thomas crouched beside him. Maybe you were right. Later, at a nearby thrift store, Noah picked up a worn denim jacket, frayed at the cuffs. He tried it on. "Too street for a mansion?" he asked. Thomas grinned. "It's perfect." Back at the house that evening, Thomas walked into his home office and found one of his modern paintings replaced. In its place was Noah's black and white photo, the staircase shadows from school. Beneath it, Noah had written on masking tape, "Still figuring it out." Thomas touched the frame gently, not perfect, not polished, but real. That night at dinner, Noah pushed away his plate halfway through. Thomas looked up. "Something wrong?" Noah hesitated. "What if this doesn't last? What if you change your mind?" Thomas leaned forward. "I didn't find you to fill a hole in my life. I found you because you were missing from it." Noah's voice cracked. "So, you're saying this is forever?" Thomas nodded. "Forever." Noah stared at him. Then he stood, walked to the wall, and took down the window photo, the very first one. He handed it to Thomas. "Keep this near you. So if you ever forget how far I came, you'll remember." Thomas reached for the photo, but paused. "Noah," he said, his voice steady, "let's hang this in the front hallway, so everyone who walks in sees what matters most." And for the first time in the mansion, Noah smiled. Not shy, not forced, but full. "I'll get the hammer," he said. The next Saturday, the sky hung low over Miami, silver clouds rolling above the skyline. But inside Thomas's mansion, the mood was light. Noah tugged on a hoodie as he met Thomas by the front door, camera slung across his chest. "Ready?" Thomas zipped his jacket. "Always." They stepped outside together, not in a limo, not with bodyguards, just father and son, walking. Their plan? A photo walk across downtown, shooting buildings from Noah's eye and learning to see each other's world. They started on Flagler Street. Noah crouched near puddles, catching reflections of street lamps in the water. Thomas pointed out architectural lines, the way certain buildings curved toward the sky. As they turned onto a quieter block, Thomas pulled out his own camera, a gift from Noah weeks ago. "You remember how to use it?" Noah asked, teasing. "Mostly," Thomas said, "but I've got the best teacher." They reached an alley painted with murals. Thomas lifted his camera but froze when he heard it. "Hey, read!" a voice barked. Across the street, 2 men in suits stood near a restaurant. Clients, former allies. One shook his head. "Didn't peg you for the charity case type." Thomas kept his gaze steady. "Didn't peg you for cowards." They laughed and walked away. Noah looked up. "Who were they?" "People I don't need to impress," Thomas said, jaw tight. But Noah had seen it, the way Thomas's hand trembled, the flicker of pain in his eyes. "You good?" he asked. Thomas exhaled. "I will be." They walked in silence for a while. Then Noah pointed to a small park bench near the bay. "Let's sit." They sat side by side, the wind tossing leaves around their feet. Noah reached into his bag and pulled out a new photo. It showed Thomas, slightly out of focus, staring into a window, lost in thought. "I took this yesterday," Noah said. "Didn't tell you." Thomas studied it. "You caught me thinking." "You looked scared." Thomas hesitated. "I was. Still am." "Of what?" "Of not being enough," Thomas admitted. "Of doing this wrong. Of you realizing you deserve better." Noah was quiet for a beat. Then he said, "You show up. That's what matters." Thomas turned to him. "I've been around people who had nothing to give," Noah continued. "But you give me time, space, a camera. That picture? It's not fear. It's trying." Thomas's eyes misted. "You really think I'm trying?" "I know you are, Dad." Dad. The word cracked something open in Thomas. Not from guilt, from grace. Noah stood. "Come on, I want to show you something." They walked a few blocks to a warehouse rooftop. From the top, the entire skyline stretched before them. "This is where I used to sit," Noah said, "when the shelter was full, when it was cold. I'd come up here and watch the lights." Thomas looked out. The city glowed, but not brightly. Dim, like a distant promise. "I used to think one of those lights was yours," Noah whispered. "I didn't know your name, but I believed. You had to be out there." Thomas swallowed hard. Then Noah lifted his camera. "Look this way." Click. He took another shot, and this time, both of them, shadows falling together across the rooftop, the city behind them. As they packed up to leave, Thomas asked, "What made you believe in someone you'd never met?" Noah shrugged. "Because I saw him in the mirror." That night, they framed the rooftop photo and hung it above the staircase. Below it, on a piece of torn brown paper, Noah wrote, "Sometimes broken things find their way home." A week after the rooftop photo, the headlines exploded. CEO, Thomas Reed abandons empire to raise street kid. Is he fit to lead? From skyscrapers to shelter stories, stockholders question Reed's priorities. Thomas sat at the breakfast table, newspaper folded in half, unread coffee cooling beside him. Noah walked in, yawning. "You're not eating." Thomas slid the paper away. "Didn't want to ruin the eggs." Noah picked up the page. His face tightened. "They're calling me street kid like I'm trash." "You're not," Thomas said firmly. "They just don't know your name yet." At the next board meeting, Thomas stood at the head of the table in a charcoal gray suit, but this time, no polished speech. One executive leaned back. "The media's ripping us apart, Thomas. You've lost 2 contracts this week." Another chimed in. "You can't build affordable housing if no one trusts your leadership." Thomas let them speak. Then, he set a framed photo on the table, Noah's staircase shadows. "My leadership hasn't changed," he said calmly. "But my purpose has." A pause. "I didn't lose focus. I found my son." One board member scoffed. "We hired a CEO, not a social worker." Thomas's voice sharpened. "Then you never understood the mission. Our properties stand on communities that need more than buildings. They need stories, art, belonging." Silence. Outside the building, paparazzi swarmed. A camera flash caught Noah's face as he waited in the car. He lowered his window. "You think they'll ever stop chasing us?" Thomas chuckled. "Probably not, but they'll never catch what matters." That night, they sat in Thomas's study. Noah fidgeted with an old camera lens, clicking it open and shut. "Are they going to make you choose?" he asked. "Them or me?" Thomas leaned forward. "There's no choice. If this job means losing you, I walk away." Noah's hand stopped. "You'd really do that?" "I already did," Thomas said. "The day I chose you over everything else." The next day, the story escalated. A viral clip showed a client backing out of a deal, blaming emotional distraction. Online critics piled in. But then, something unexpected happened. A photo surfaced. Noah's rooftop shot of the Miami skyline, shadows of two figures blending. The caption read, "Fatherhood isn't a weakness, it's a blueprint." It was posted by a famous architect Thomas once mentored. Other artists followed. Designers, urban planners, even youth advocates. The story flipped. Calls flooded in. Not just from developers, but teachers, nonprofits, and even city council members. They wanted to know how Thomas was using art to rebuild trust in underserved neighborhoods. Thomas turned to Noah. "Looks like you started something." Noah shrugged. "I just showed the truth." Thomas smiled. "Then let's tell the rest." Later that week, father and son sat at a press event in a public library downtown. Flashbulbs went off, microphones lined the podium, but Thomas didn't speak first. Noah did. "I used to think a home was just walls," he said. "Then I met someone who saw me as more than where I came from." He held up a photo, his old alley corner, now empty. "This was my shelter," he continued, "but it was never my story. My story began the day someone asked my name." Thomas stood beside him, hand on his shoulder. "This is Noah," he said to the room, "my son, my reason." And as applause rose like thunder, Thomas looked down at the boy beside him, no longer a shadow in the corner, but the center of his world. The grand hall buzzed with murmurs as Thomas Reed stepped to the podium. The charity gala was in full swing, chandeliers casting soft golden light over rows of polished faces, some curious, others skeptical. He cleared his throat, eyes scanning the crowd. Many were Miami's elite, developers, investors, philanthropists. Tonight wasn't about profits or deals. It was about a promise. Thomas began, voice steady but full of emotion. 2.5 million children in the United States experience homelessness every year. 2.5 million stories of survival, courage, and hope. He paused, letting the weight sink in. Tonight, I want to share one of those stories, one very close to my heart. A photo of Noah appeared on the screen behind him, a boy with wild blonde hair, eyes shining with quiet strength. "This is my son, Noah, a boy who lived in the shadows of our city, sleeping on sidewalks, searching for food, carrying the weight of abandonment no child should bear." The room fell silent. Thomas continued, "For years, I built towers and planned communities, blind to the faces behind them, until fate brought Noah back to me, a living reminder that no child is invisible." He paused, swallowing hard. "Noah taught me what true legacy means. Not the buildings we raise, but the lives we uplift." Whispers rippled through the crowd. Today, we launch the Reed Foundation for Urban Youth Arts, a program dedicated to providing creative outlets and support for children living in slums and shelters. Thomas smiled, watching Noah step onto the stage beside him, camera slung over his shoulder. Noah held up a photo, a black and white image of a cracked window, sunlight spilling in. "This was my world," he said softly, "but art showed me a new one, a place where I belong." Thomas nodded. "With your help, and theirs, we will open doors." A hand shot up from the crowd. A reporter. "Mr. Reed, critics say this is a PR stunt. How do you respond?" Thomas met the question head on. "This is no stunt. It's accountability. For too long we ignored children like Noah. Now we're listening and acting." Another voice called out, softer this time. "What can we do to help?" Noah smiled. "You can see us, hear us, give us a chance." The applause swelled. Later, Thomas and Noah stood near the gallery wall, where photos taken by slum children framed the room, hope captured in every frame. Noah looked up at Thomas. "Thank you for believing." Thomas rested a hand on his son's shoulder. "Thank you for trusting me." And as the evening faded into night, the mansion no longer felt empty but alive, with promise, redemption, and love. The sun was setting over Miami as Thomas and Noah walked into a brightly lit community center nestled between worn brick buildings and the bustling city streets. The center buzzed with life. Kids laughing, paintbrushes swishing, cameras clicking, and music spilling out the open windows. Thomas scanned the room and smiled. This was more than a program. It was a home. Noah led the way to a corner where a group of children gathered around cameras and photo albums. He stopped and pulled out his own camera, handing it to a shy girl with wide eyes. "Try this," he said softly. "See what you want to see." The girl's smile blossomed, lighting up the room. Thomas watched, heart swelling. This was the legacy he wanted, the one that mattered. Later, Noah caught his eye and whispered, "Look what I made, Dad." He held up a framed photograph. Two shadows cast along on cracked concrete, one tall, one small, their hands almost touching. Thomas's voice trembled. "It's beautiful." Noah shrugged. "It's us. Finding home." At that moment, a mother from the program approached Thomas. Her eyes glistened with gratitude. "Thank you. For believing. For giving these kids a chance." Thomas nodded, humbled. "They gave me one, too." Outside, the city lights began to twinkle, reflecting a promise of hope and new beginnings. As they walked back to the mansion, Noah slipped his hand into Thomas's. "I'm glad you're my dad," he said quietly. Thomas smiled, squeezing gently. "And I'm proud to be yours." Together, they looked up at the night sky, where stars shimmered like dreams, waiting to come true. A simple photo, a broken window, a boy's courage, they had all come full circle. This was their home now.